Hey guys, how are you? So this past Christmas, I made sure I got everybody what they wanted on their Christmas list. But at the same time, I'm really hard to buy for, so it's hard to ask for something that you want, especially until you see it. And so um, this past December, I saw something right around Christmas time, and I was like, I want that. Do I need that? No, I do not. And it's now February 19th. And what I bought myself for Christmas, I have not used, not once, but I'm gonna use it tonight. So what I asked for from myself, of course, was a knife from Dalstrong. And this knife is called the Annihilator. It's not quite a knife. They actually advertise it as a cleaver. So this is the knife here, as you can see. Now this is substantial. Comes with its own block, and it sits in there. It's almost like a piece of art. We have a knife set in the kitchen. It's here. Does this knife have a place in our kitchen? No, it does not. Why does this knife not have a place in our kitchen? Well, quite frankly, because my wife said, baby, no, we are not keeping that in the kitchen. That is ridiculous. You have to take it somewhere else. So I keep it on my desk in my office. It's kind of a cool thing to keep on the desk, but tonight I have a need for it. And the reason I have a need for it is because I need to make dinner. So what am I gonna make for dinner? Well, tonight, what I want is steak and a glass of wine. So there's my glass of wine, and there's my steak. The problem is I bought this filet because it was a good price, and of course it is solid as a rock. Can I cook this the way it is? No, of course not. Of course I cannot cook it like it is. Now you might be asking, why are you gonna cook that steak tonight? Well, because I messed up. I did something silly, and my wife, cooked dinner without me because I forgot to do something that I said I would do. And, I think a lot of guys can relate to this. I didn't do it on purpose. I just forgot. So now I find myself eating alone, but at the same time, wanting a steak and a glass of wine. Will I leave the house and go out to a restaurant by myself? No. Why? Because I am not dumb. So I'm gonna have steak and wine here at home, but my steak is frozen solid. So what are my options? Well, I could thaw out the whole thing and probably waste it, because once the whole thing's thawed out, it's gonna be no good because I'm not gonna get to it. Or I can cut a piece off. Well, what am I gonna cut a piece of that steak off with? I don't know. Maybe the Annihilator. So far, I have my glass of wine, I have the Annihilator, and I have my frozen filet mignon. Seems like a pretty straightforward option. Will I unwrap it? No. Why? Because if the Annihilator can cut through the steak, clearly it should be able to cut through the plastic as well. So we're gonna take a crack at this literally and see what happens. All right, so now I have set up my steak and my Gladiator, and I wanna give it a straight through, clean shot, and I wanna see how this works out. I've never used this as a cleaver before. I'm dealing with a solid, frozen piece of filet mignon. I'm hungry. My wife hates my guts, but I'm still gonna eat. Let's see how it goes. That was take one, and what we effectively did was I cut through the steak about halfway through, but the problem is the steak flipped up in the air. So we're gonna do take two on this. Okay. So once again, I gave it a good chop. I got about the same distance through the meat, and interestingly enough, at the same angle. So I think now I'm going to use just some direct pressure. Or maybe I should just hit it again. And I think one more will do it. Well, that is the end of the Gladiator Dalstrong cleaver knife. So for future reference, I would suggest not chopping into solid frozen fillet. This is my torture test of this cleaver, and guess what? I'm still eating steak for dinner. So after a handful of chops, we have come to find out that the blade does not run through the handle, but rather only a section of the metal runs into the handle. And that handle does not withstand the force of a frozen filet mignon. Here's my chunks. I'm still gonna eat it. And there's the cuts. Well, bon appetit. Let's see how the Dalstrong warranty holds up against my demonstration. Now I do have to make a correction and an edit here. I referred to this blade as the Gladiator, which is another one of their blades. However, this is the Annihilator. The Annihilator, not the Gladiator. I'm not sure how the Gladiator performs, but I do know how the Annihilator performs. Now, as a follow-up to this, I went out in the garage and I got, my dad died quite a few years ago, but I went and I got my dad's cleaver. Now, Dad was a farmer, he was a hunter, and I knew this cleaver has been through quite a lot of pieces of meat. Right here, I've got basically a Dollar General style sharpener. I'm gonna sharpen it away from the meat over here. And then I'm gonna wipe it off. And we're gonna see how Dad's cleaver does against the Dalstrong Annihilator. All right, well, I gave it a good wash down. I gave it a basic sharpening with a very rudimentary sharpener. And I've got the same piece of meat, it's just as frozen. And now we're gonna give it a couple whacks with Dad's cleaver. All right, now, from a cutting standpoint, obviously we're using about the same size blade and thickness. We're using about the same size sharpness. It actually cut into it a little bit less, and I'm gonna say that this is a little bit thicker and a little less sharp, which would explain for the cut not going as deep. However, now we're gonna go in torture test mode and see what multiple whacks does in real time. All right, we got this lined up. There's a slice of meat there. We're gonna work off the same slice, just like I did with the Annihilator, and we're gonna take it through. Conker, get off. Well, the dog almost got it, but Dad's cleaver survived. The Annihilator didn't. Thank goodness for good old Dad. So in summary, the Dalstrong Annihilator, which retails for around $200 plus or minus a few bucks, or Dad's Cleaver, which obviously I got for free, or you can pick one of these up at a local thrift shop or yard sale for somewhere in the range of between $5 and $10. And I'd say the big difference is here, the steel runs completely through the handle. In this one, it does not. If you're looking for flashy, if you're looking for good presentation and a nice rack to set up somewhere, absolutely, spend your 200 bucks. If you're looking for something to get the job done, spend 5 or 10 bucks or get one from Dad and use the old-fashioned cleaver with the steel running through the handle. And to quote my dad in summary, I'll simply say this: son, they sure don't make them like they used to. Well, bon appetit. Extra rare, just the way I like it. That's good.